information, and the municipalities don't have this kind of info. And including the private sector and involving a good management company in this process sets some guidelines and is a good benchmark to measure the efficiency of such an operation. Now, what are the potential opportunities of waste management in Egypt related to RDF? The numbers are not very much different than the numbers you have seen in the IFC report. There's a potential of 4 million tons of RDF from the 20 million tons of MSW. And this is at 4 gigacal per kilogram of RDF. Today, we are producing more than 4,000. We're producing around 4,500 gigacal. We have succeeded in getting the humidity even lower than 20%. And that is a potential substitution of 2.7 million tons of coal, which translates into around $270 million. So in terms of hard currency, in terms of USD, you're saving 270, but of course there is a price of RDF, which is around 70% of this. So the potential saving is around $80 million, but then the rest is being paid in EGP. So you're saving $270 million in foreign currency terms, but in terms of cost, you're saving around 70%, you're saving 30% of this, which is around $80 million, which is going along similar to the numbers that are produced by the IFC. Now, what are the potential opportunities? The IFC has reported there are 62 plants. We've counted them 67. Again, it's a big dilemma to identify all the waste areas, but we can only identify 12 operating plants. And even those 12, very few are operating close to the capacities in Ismailia and Port Said. Of course, the remaining 55 plants need, or the remaining non-operating 55 plants need incredible investments. The IFC has already some numbers on the potential and on the capex, and so I will not go into the numbers that we think are needed to develop this. Now, the compost, there is a potential of 3.6 million tons of compost from MSW. And there is something very important about compost that has always been ignored. And I think, and we do believe that there is no market and there is no capacity to produce biogas from the organic waste of MSW. Biogas probably could work for animal manure, for biomass or agricultural waste. But the organic component in mixed MSW is extremely contaminated to the point it will not yield enough biogas if probably if it's landfilled, and this is something else. But to produce biogas using the digesters today is hard. But it's an excellent way to produce compost for land reclamation. The good thing about compost, it's a topsoil that could be done during land reclamation. When you're going to the desert and trying to cultivate, you need to increase water retention. And compost is a natural fertilizer, quite cheap, and it can really help on the 1.5 million Feddans, 1.5 million acre, which is the national project in Egypt for the land reclamation. Of course, the challenges. And everyone in this room would agree with the challenges. Waste collection is a major problem. I mean, the gentleman from CEMEX said that he wouldn't want to go the extra mile to go into this part. But actually, Reliance is very much now interested and very much studying to go into the waste collection. But the problem with the collection is the financing part. There is not just enough money being paid today to collect. And Dr. Khaled Fahmy understands it very well, but the problem is how to channel the money and who to pay. This is a major issue. Today in Ismailia, we have around 50% efficiency. We are doing some collection on our own for some industrial waste and from some commercial activity to reach up to 60%. So the 50% is a governorate/private collection today in Ismailia. And there has to be a fair value. We have done a national study, and the minimum is 12 Egyptian pound per residential unit per month. The actual today for Port Said is 6 and 8 for Ismailia. So those are actual numbers today. And we've estimated you need around 250 Egyptian pounds per metric ton of waste to cover the collection, transport, transfer stations in some of the towns, and the landfilling of the 20%. The 250 Egyptian pound will lead to 5 billion. I'm not aware of the figures in the budget, but I think the number is not more than 30% of this number, the actual being paid today, including Cairo and Alexandria. And Cairo is about half a billion on its own, so half a billion Egyptian pound per year. Project financing for waste management and RDF. There is a high capex requirement, of course. The returns are still quite low, especially there is no gate fee. And we will get into why the returns are low, primarily because of the quantities arriving are still low. But also there is low availability of funds. Local banks in Egypt are very still reluctant to go into financing. It's a new model, a model that has not yet succeeded clearly. And also the demand side is still not very solid from the cement industry. And here, an organization like the IFC would be extremely important to the development of such a long-term project scheme. Of course, and there is the enforcing of the environment regulation. First, dump sites must be shut down. We are constantly doing the cat and mouse chase in Ismailia, for example, shutting down all the informal sites that keep on popping all the time. And unfortunately, no one really cares if the waste is going to be dumped illegally, except us, of course, because we are being hurt. So unless there is someone running after the people, it becomes very difficult, unless, of course, the government decides really to implement the law in this. And of course, cement companies need to develop the plans for gradual substitution of coal with AF. Just you know, and this is interesting because the numbers are not reflecting the true situation. 57%, which is 13 plants in Egypt, they don't have any feeding line for AF today. They even don't have plans yet. And this is, of course, reducing the available market. So only 2 plants, which is 9%, they have 20% substitution. 4 plants, they have, which is 70% of the market, they have from 10 to 20. And another 4 plants, they have from 1 to 10%. So the market here is still not developed enough. Of course, there has been always the issue that there was no enough supply. But today, more and more locations are being available to produce RDF. Of course, there is also biomass. And this is a market that definitely needs to be developed. And I know a lot of people will not be very happy to hear me saying this. It's quite unfair for the companies that have actually taken the risk and have AF or RDF feeding lines. It's unfair for them if still 50% or more than 50% of the industry still is not using any RDF or any alternative fuels. So those plants are actually using 100% coal or 100% other fuels, and they will not be able by any means to reduce the emissions, as Dr. Khalid was saying today. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I realize that this last sort of set of questions and answers are what stands between us and lunch. I can hear that they're just getting it ready. I'd like to thank the panelists for really excellent presentations, and I think there's a lot of different questions and ideas floating around in the audience. I suggest that we take maybe 5 minutes for a brief question and answer, and we can also use the lunch period for networking and other questions. So we'll take about 3 questions now. I'll start 1, 2, 3. So I catch the first 3.
Yeah, thank you, Bruno Carré from the Cement Association and Suez Cement. My question will go to you, Karim. I think you made a very brilliant case that cement industry is part of the solution, but not the solution because of the massive amount, 80% of the stream has to go somewhere else than in the cement kilns. And the criticality of the composting is also a very, very important aspect. And my question is specific. In terms of quality control of the composting material, especially the content in heavy metals, so that this compost could be used in a safe way for agricultural land, what did you discover in the operations you have in both Ismaili and Port Said?
Well, I mean,
We'll take all three questions
sure.
and maybe answer at the end if you don't mind. So there was another one back here.
Dalia Nakhla, environmental and energy consultant. I'm a freelancer. I was very actually proud of the effort of Engineer Karim here. And but I had the same question as you had about the content of heavy metals in the compost. Do you analyze for that? How do you control it? The other thing you said that you, of course, you stopped the dumping in the old dump sites. But how did you stop the smoke? Did you rehabilitate the site? Did you cover it up? Are you mining the old waste and reusing it? Because, as you said, there are like 50 years of accumulation of waste, and there, I'm sure smoke was coming out of it regularly, but you did control the extra dumping, but what did you do to the old accumulated waste?
Very quickly. Concerning Engineer Karim, concerning the until the effective and efficient collection of the collection fees for the waste, would it be possible or would it be economic to invest in collection of waste, and would it be economic for you as a company to buy this waste from a private collector?
Michelle, you're getting off easy right now, so we're hoping we'll have some questions for Michelle as well.
Hi, my name is Tawfiq Al-Khishan. I work for GIZ. My question is more or less along the same lines, but in the 250 pound system cost that you mentioned, you didn't mention the treatment cost. So I'm quite curious, basically, so what you mean is that your operation basically pays for itself, which in a way contradicts what the recommendation of the report is that you need to convince governorates to pay a gate fee, even though it seems your model is based on you actually paying the governorates. And how do we create that, convince a governorate that's actually getting money from you to stop that and start paying a gate fee? So there seems to be a contradiction there.
Thank you for those questions. I think most of the questions are for you, Karim, so
Okay.
we'll hand over the floor to you.
Okay, Bruno, regarding the quality of compost, of course, I mean, this is the biggest challenge. We had a big issue at the very beginning with the Ministry of Environment, trying to convince them otherwise, that maybe it would be better not to treat the compost. But then we had to, because the amount of organic material is just enormous, and you have to do something about it. So what we're basically doing, the secret of this operation is sorting. And all the cement industry is very funny when I go to conferences. Everyone is talking about the shredding part. But actually the sorting is a success, is the key to succeed in this, even to produce RDF, because you need to remove all the other material. So you basically need to, as much as you could, sort the organic stream on the sorting line and to sort the compost itself after screening. We screen 4 times, and every time you hope to remove whatever is not organic material. So we are sorting it by hand. It has to be manual. We're doing constant testing for heavy metals, and today we are not finding the problem with the compost is the glass. This is where there is an issue, but it's not a problem because it doesn't degrade. So for the topsoil, it's okay. But if we remove the batteries and we remove the bulbs, the light bulbs, you are really removing most of the heavy metals. So there is no solution and there is no trick. I mean, there is no magic here. It has to be done in a very consistent, pain stalking way. It's a very difficult process, and it's a very expensive process. And if there is no market for compost, this will have to stop, because I mean, you just cannot be producing compost like this and going through all those. But again, it's a self-perception and it's a trust issue, because people still simply do not trust MSW compost yet. And it will need to be built. This relationship will take time. But it's just purely by manual sorting. There is no other way, simply. Regarding the old waste and the mining, no, we cannot do anything about it, because all those dump sites are mixed with construction debris. and they have already burned. So there is no calorific value for this. So the best way is just to cover it up. And this is what we're doing today, is with all the construction debris cannot go in our plant. So we're just putting it on the old waste. So at least you have, of course, it's not a landfill, so it's not in any way prepared as a landfill underground. So whatever has gone through has already gone through, and whatever will still go through from the old waste will have to go through. There is no way. But we're talking here about millions of tons. But at least the burning has stopped because the fuel is no longer being fed. There is nothing new to be burned. Yeah. I missed the third question. Something about the economic way. What? Okay. Regarding the collection fee. Today, the fees that are being paid cannot make this work. I mean, we've tried many times with the Ministry of Environment to raise the fee per residential unit. You know the problem in Egypt, and this is something that you only learn by doing it yourself. Unlike most countries in the world, the people do not want to take their garbage bag into the municipal box in the street. No, there are. I'll show you pictures. There are many boxes that are empty, but the people are used in Egypt for the garbage man to go up to the apartment and pick up the bag. The cultural difference here is that you must introduce the home collection. You just cannot depend on people throwing the garbage in the bin. This we have tried many times. I have tons of pictures, especially from Ismailia, because I used to go myself in the streets to inspect the cleanliness. You have the garbage bin empty with piles of garbage on the other side. Of course, the scavengers make it worse, but so you have to prevent, you have to introduce home collection, and you have to prevent the residents from going down and putting it in the bin, because then you are also encouraging scavenging of garbage. So our study, you need at least, for every 500 unit, you need one worker. So in a city like Ismailia, if I remember the number correctly, you have to have 600 workers going up every single day for every unit to collect every single apartment. If you want to prevent scavenging and if you want to really produce clean streets. But in order to do this, you have to pay a lot of money. And this is where the 12 Egyptian pounds are coming from that I have presented. Today in Ismailia, there is only 60 workers doing this job. So it's only 10% of what we think needs to be done. So that can give you an idea on the efficiency of collection in Ismailia. So once the fee is correct, we will definitely do the collection. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to be depending on a defunct system that is simply not being financed, but it has to be financed well. And then it goes without saying. And the people in Egypt are throwing the garbage in the street because they have no alternative sometimes. There is no one going up, and sometimes there are no bins, of course. Okay, regarding the 250 EGP, no, that had nothing to do with the material disposal. This is purely the home collection scheme, which is a 12 EGP minimum that goes up to 25 EGP depending on the location, the transportation, the transfer station, and the landfilling cost of the remaining 20%, which is not part of this project, which is borne today by the governorate. So the 250 EGP has nothing to do with the recycling. This has to be borne by the governorate or by the institution that is responsible for the collection. This has nothing to do with the waste management facility. For this amount to be paid, then you get a guarantee that the collection is done properly, basically. This is where the 250 EGP is coming from. So it has nothing to do with the recycling part. No, I cannot hear you, I'm sorry.
So I think one more question, and then we'll close up and head to lunch.
And no, we should not, by the way, we should not be paying for the waste, huh? Not at all. I mean, recycling waste management plants are doing a great job to this country. Eventually, they need to be subsidized. Of course, a gate fee would help a lot, at least a gate fee on the final products rather than the input. But the waste management plan should never pay a penny for the waste. I mean, waste is not a treasure. This is a big myth that we always had in Egypt. I mean, if this is your question.
Did you want to clarify something?
So basically, just to clarify, but the system as it exists now in your operation, you can cover your costs from the sale of RDF and compost. This is what
I mean.
This is the crux of because the report recommends paying a gate fee for the system to develop, but then we have on the ground operators not only are not getting a gate fee, they are paying the governorates to actually.
We are not paying the governorate anything. I mean, Reliance is not paying. But I mean, I'll tell you something, but don't quote me ever on this. Huh? And I never said this before. If the material is arriving at the plant unscavenged, okay, and the material is coming at the capacity of the plant, because I mean, this is a big issue, and there is the market for RDF, which is still not there enough, yes, this plant could be self-sufficient without a gate fee today. The reason there is a gate fee in Europe, for example, is that there is very little manual sorting of the recyclables. And then you have to go to CHP or incineration and produce electricity with huge capex. But because there is no guarantee of the material you're receiving, and because it has much less value than what it should be, and because we're receiving less than 50%, then of course a gate fee is a must. So I mean, people sometimes it's always being confused here. You have to see the top model, or the model it should have been at. If you're operating at 100% capacity and getting the material as it leaves the apartment, it's a different story. It's a different waste altogether. It's a different material. I mean, totally different material. We are getting garbage today from the roads, which are completely destroyed, completely humid, that it takes much longer to dry to produce RDF. This is all adding to your cost. And that is why it's difficult today. And this is why collection could be very interesting, provided that it is getting the fair value for it.
Great, thank you so much. I feel like we probably could go on for another hour or so with the discussion.
Yeah, before we close, I just want to add one point, is that during the presentation, just after lunch, we'll be presenting also like 5 scenarios on economics of various alternative fuel pre-processing, whether including gate fee or not, whether including recyclables or not. So this may answer also your question on that.
So that's your incentive to come back after lunch, and we can continue that discussion in a lot more detail. So please, I invite you to enjoy a bite.